conversation about Nnamdi Kanu, or Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, like his people would call him, is one that sadly now leaves a very sour taste in our taste buds as a nation, because to the minds of several people it doesn't make sense. You're neither prosecuting this guy to the fullest. Okay, accuse him of whatever you want to accuse him, detain him, imprison him or something for 2 years, going on to the third year. As a matter of fact, you have had him in DSS detention. You're neither talking about it. The process of bringing him into Nigeria, for instance, is against international laws or treaties that we are signatories to. In all of this conversation, nothing seemed to be moving. But now Ejimakor is going back to something that happened in the 80s about Omar Diko and how that affected other Nigerians. Do you think this will ever get to that point?
Well, you can't rule out any possibility. I'm sure that at this point, even the Kenyans themselves were feeling remorseful for the role they played in the extraordinary rendition, as they called it, of Nnamdi Kanu. I am sure that if the Kenyans knew that that trial is going to take this embarrassing turn, where it's going to continue ad infinitum, where even in instances where courts grant him relief, the Nigerian government deliberately flouts or just ignores those court orders, then I'm sure they wouldn't have played the role they did in his arrest. I hate to sound like a broken record, but unfortunately it appears that's what the Mazi Nnamdi Kanu issue is making me sound like. I think there is need for us to look for a way out of this, because it's becoming a national embarrassment. It's even having the opposite effect of what the government intends for it to have. If the government is truly desirous of bringing peace to the southeast, then it's imperative that the government should pay attention to the status of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. I mean, if you can't expedite the trial, then you should do something about providing him relief. At this moment, as we speak, legally, Nnamdi Kanu is not a convict; he's just a suspect pending trial. And I mean, you can't detain him ad infinitum. It's not even working. You're going to provoke his followers. You're going to, worsen the security situation in the southeast. Except there is a hidden agenda in all this to stall development in the southeast, to keep the southeast perpetually backward, which I can't even take beyond the Nigerian authorities. Except that's the case. Otherwise, I don't even see the logic in detaining Nnamdi Kanu forever. We've seen these things before. There was a time when there was unrest in the Niger Delta, and then the government went after it with a sledgehammer. However, in the end, reason prevailed, and the government realized that, sometimes it is not everything you go after with that, what now has become fashionable to be called the kinetic approach. There are times when you have to resort to soft approaches, and then those soft approaches would even avail more, would prove more effective, more efficacious than, wholesale confrontation. I think the government should begin to think about that, and I think it's sad that the government needs Nigerians to, awaken into that reality. Because obviously you've seen that this approach is not working. The next thing is to try a new approach. And I think a softer approach will provide more result than what the government is doing right now.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that something would happen. I will always go back to ask, why is it difficult for politicians to keep their promise? Tinubu, during the campaigns, one of the promises he made was to negotiate with these people when he gets into power. He's been in power for months, and from sit-at-home order being neither here nor there, and that some states is still going on, though not as serious as it is in other states. If all of this, that, okay, you may look at the Southeast and say, okay, their economy is nothing to write home about. It's primarily on private economy, so it doesn't do anything to the national purse. But what about your role as the chief security officer of the country? What about your role as the father of the nation to say, hey, these people need attention? When we create a room, like you pointed out, where conversations are beginning to look like, oh, it's this ethnic group against this ethnic group. And now, in such a scene, how well do we really genuinely want to build a better Nigeria with all of this hanging here? And they talked about Sunday Boho. That issue is still unresolved, by the way.
Well, the truth is that anybody who thinks that way, anybody who feels that, oh, the Nnamdi Kanu issue, the IPOB issue is a localized issue peculiar to the Southeast, doesn't even understand how nations function. I mean, I think it would be sad for our leaders to conceive of this issue along those lines. The truth is that a nation such as ours is, a composite of different ethnic nationalities, organized in such a way that what affects one has a tendency to spiral into another area and then even cause greater trouble. So I think, and then of course, I have history on my side when I say that some of the conflagrations that have threatened the national fabric, that have threatened to rip apart the national fabric, began as localized dissent in some cases, and then because they were poorly managed, they sort of escalated and then engulfed the entire nation. So if the government is thinking that, oh, this issue affects the Southeast alone, oh, the Southeast is unimportant in the scheme of things, as a matter of fact, you may not be wrong in saying, in speculating along those lines, because even a former president in this country described the Southeast as a dot in a circle, or something even, something even less benign than that. So I think it shows poor thinking for anybody to think of what is going on in the Southeast along those lines. The truth is that what is going on in the Southeast has enough potential in it to threaten the well-being of this country, to threaten the cohesion of this country as a whole. And it will be sad for anybody to think of, ignoring the issue and then just letting it fester in the hope that, it will go away on its own. It won't go away on its own. The government needs to come out with, a pragmatic, well-calculated, well-thought-out plan to resolve the problem. And it's resolvable. It's resolvable. I mean, what is going on in the Southeast is nowhere comparable to what is going on in Gaza. And efforts are being made to resolve that. So there is really no problem that diplomats cannot solve. There's really no problem that there is no dispute that you cannot resolve. In any case, all disputes are resolved ultimately at the negotiation table. So the earlier all the parties to this, particularly the government, which is supposed to galvanize all the other parties, decide that it's time to meet and talk, the better for us.